In this video, we're going to look at just one last example of solving rational equations, and we're going to go through the whole process for it. The first step when you solve is you want to make sure you look at your excluded values. So my excluded values are where the denominator equals 0. So I have x plus 1 is my denominator for the first fraction. So x plus 1 equals 0, x, if I solve, equals -1. I cannot get this for an answer. The next denominator I have is x minus 3. So set that equal to 0. X equals positive 3. So I cannot get -1 or 3 for an answer when I solve. The next step is you want to find your common denominator. In this one, I want to point out, you can't look at the x and the plus 1 as two separate entities. Because if you were to translate this into words, x plus 1 means one more than a number. And so this entire thing is your variable expression. X plus 1, it's an object. That entire thing is your variable expression. Same thing here, x minus 3, 3 less than a number. I mean, you need this entire thing to figure out what that number is. And so these are your factors. Your common denominator, if you think about it, this on the bottom is an x plus 1. It's missing this x minus 3. So I know I'm going to need to put an x minus 3 in this left fraction. Now if I look over here, this x minus 3 is missing this x plus 1. So my common denominator is when I have both of those factors in the denominator. So it's x minus 3 times x plus 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides of this expression, of this equation, by the common denominator. I'm going to multiply the left side and the right side by x minus 3 and x plus 1. So let's put it on the right side as well. I have x minus 3 times x plus 1. And we're going to distribute this in. Now, when you're distributing this in, I'm just going to go ahead and do the shortcut at this point so you can see it. When I distribute this into the first fraction, think about it. This is only being brought to the top. That is why I write it usually small and put it up where it looks like it's part of the numerator, is I know it's only going to affect the top. Well, if I do that, this x plus 1 and this x plus 1 are going to cancel each other out. I'm going to have an x plus 1 at the top and an x plus 1 at the bottom. So I'm going to be left with just the x and the x minus 3. If I distribute to the second fraction, I'm going to have an x minus 3 in the top and an x minus 3 in the bottom. Those are going to cancel out. So I'm really left with the 3 that was originally there and the x plus 1. Equals 1 times anything is just itself. So x minus 3 times x plus 1. Now I just have to simplify, distribute, combine like terms. So if I distribute, I'm going to get x squared minus 3x plus 3x plus 3. And if I distribute over here, I know I'm going to get an x squared, and I'm going to get a -3 for my constant. The terms I'm going to combine is a -3x and a positive 1x, which is going to give me -2x. And now we just solve. Now here's the interesting part. I have an x squared on the right side and I have an x squared on the left side, so those can just cancel each other out. I also have a -3x plus 3x on the left side. I mean, those will cancel each other out. So the actual equation I'm solving is 3 equals -2x minus 3. So I would add 3, 6 equals -2x, and I would divide by -2, x equals -3. Now, before we box it, we circle it to say that is our answer. We need to compare it to our excluded values. And my excluded values for this were -1 and +3. My answer is x equals -3, which is not part of the excluded values. So therefore, that is my solution. So in this case, we had to multiply through by our common denominator. I skipped putting the actual distributing. If you can't see this shortcut, always just show what's on the top, bottom, and cross out, and you'll be able to get the answer from there. But I saw that if I distribute to the first term, the x plus 1s will cancel, so I'm left with just this x and this x minus 3. When I distribute to the second term, the x minus 3s will cancel, so I'm just left with the 3 and the x plus 1. So I can visually see what's going to cancel, so I do not have to write down as much work when solving rational equations.